Chapters 1 through 5 of the Book of Deuteronomy from the Holy Bible in Modern English. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Mark Penfold. The Holy Bible in Modern English, translated by Ferrar Fenton. The Book of Deuteronomy, chapters 1 through 5. Chapter 1. The following are the speeches which Moses addressed to all the children of Israel before the passage over the Jordan, in the desert, extending from Suph, between Paran, and Thophel, and Laban, and Katzroth, and Yab. It was during the 40th year, in the 11th month, upon the first of the month, Moses related to the children of Israel all that the Ever-Living had commanded him for them, after he had defeated Sihon, king of the Amorites, who lived in Heshbon, and Og, king of Bashan, who lived at Ashtaroth in Edrei, on this side of the ford of the Jordan, in the land of Moab. Moses began to publish the law, and said, Our ever-living God spoke to us in Horeb, saying, You have remained long enough on this mountain. Turn and march, and proceed with all your camps to the highlands of the Amorites, and all their neighbors in the dry lands of the hills, and thence to the plains and desert along the shore of the sea of the land of Canaan, and from Lebanon, as far as the great river Freight. Attend! I have opened the country to you. Go and seize the land which the Ever-Living promised to give to your fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, and give it to them and to their posterity after them. But I told you all at that time, I myself could not support you alone. And now your ever-living God has increased you, and see, you are today like the stars of the sky in number. And the ever-living, the God of your fathers, will add to you beyond this 1,000 times, and will bless you as he promised. How can I alone bear your troubling, and carry your contentions? Go, choose for yourselves skillful, clear-sighted, and educated men to control you, and I will appoint them your chiefs. When you answered me, What you have said is good. What you have said, do it. I therefore chose as the chiefs of your tribes skillful and educated men, and gave them to you as your chiefs, colonels of regiments, and captains of companies, and captains of 50s, and captains of 10s, with magistrates for your tribes. I also ordered your judges at that time, saying, Listen between your brothers, and decide just judgments between a man and his brother, and the foreigners among you. Do not regard social station in deciding whether low or high. Listen not in fear of the station of a man, for justice belongs to God himself. But any matter that is too difficult for you, bring to me, and I will hear it. I instructed you also at that time as to what things you ought to do. Then we marched from Horeb and proceeded through all that great and terrible desert which you saw on the way to the hills of the Amorites, when our ever-living God commanded us to advance to Kadesh Barnea, where I said, You are now arrived at the hills of the Amorites, which our ever-living God has given us. Look, your ever-living God has provided the country before you to possess. Go up, seize it as the ever-living God of your fathers commands you. Fear not, nor be terrified. But all of you approached me, asking to send men before you to examine the country, and to report to you about the road by which you could go up to it, and about the cities that you were to go to. And the request seemed good in my opinion, and I appointed 12 princes, one from each tribe, and they turned and went up to the hills, and descended to the vale of Eshcol, and slandered it. But they took into their hands some of the produce of the country, and came back to us, and reported the matter, saying, It is a beautiful country that our ever-living God has given us. But you were not willing to go up, and rebelled against the order of your ever-living God, and murmured in your tents, and exclaimed, Because the ever-living hated us, he brought us out of the land of the Mitzrayim, and would give us into the hands of the Amorites to destroy us. Alas for our advance! Our brothers have depressed our hearts by saying they are a people finer and taller than us. Their cities are large and fortified up to the skies, and we also saw the sons of Anak there. But I replied to you, Be not terrified, nor fear them. Your ever-living God who goes before you, he will fight for you in the way he did in your sight among the Mitzrayim, and in the desert where you saw how the ever-living carried you as a woman carries her child, along all the way that you went until he brought you to this spot. But on that occasion you were not relying upon your ever-living God, who marched before you in the journey to choose your encampments as a fire at night, to show the way you should go, and as a cloud by day. And the ever-living heard the sound of your words and was angry and swore, saying, This vile generation shall never see the beautiful land which I promised to give to their fathers. Only Caleb the son of Jephunneh shall see it. And I will give to him and his sons the country which he traveled through, for he went up confidently, following the ever-living. The ever-living was also angry with me on account of you, and said, You shall not go there. Joshua the son of Nun, your lieutenant, shall go. Encourage him, for he shall put Israel into possession. But your infants whom you said would be captured, and your sons who today know neither good nor evil, they shall go there, and I will give it to them, and they shall possess it. But you, turn back and march to the desert, towards the sea of Suph. Then you were grieved and replied, We have sinned against the ever-living. We will now go up and conquer according to all that the ever-living God commanded. And each one of you put on arms and went up to the hill. But the ever-living said to me, Order them, go not up and fight not, for I am not with you. Therefore you will fly before your enemies. So I spoke to you, but you would not hear, and you rebelled against the order of the ever-living, and were insolent, and went up to the hill. And the Amorites who occupied the hill advanced against you, and drove you like bees would do, and routed you like a tempest to the valley. So you returned and wept before the ever-living. But the ever-living would not hear your voice, nor listened. Consequently, you were detained at Kadesh for many days. You remained there a long time. Chapter 2. Until you turned back and marched to the desert towards the sea of Suph, as the ever-living commanded me, and wandered about the hills of Seir a long time. At last the ever-living said to me, You have wandered about this hill enough. Turn to the north, and command the people, saying to them, Pass over the borders of your brothers, the sons of Esau, who dwell in Seir. But they will be afraid of you, so carefully guard yourselves, and injure them not, for I will not give you a foot's space of their country, because I have given Mount Seir to Esau as a possession. You must buy food from them with money and eat it, and also purchase water from them for money and drink it. For your ever-living God has blessed you in every work of your hand, whilst you traveled this great desert these 40 years. Your ever-living God has been with you, and you have wanted for nothing. You consequently passed by your brothers, the sons of Esau, who occupy Seir, by the road of the Arabah, to Aaloth, and at Zion-Gaber, where you turned off and traversed the road of the desert of Moab. There the ever-living said to me, Do not trouble Moab, but keep yourselves from fighting. Turn, for I have not granted you this country, because I have given Ar to the sons of Lot as a possession. Then you arose and passed the vale of Yared, and at the passage of the vale of Yared, including the period of the march from Kadesh Barnea until the time you crossed the vale of Yared, was 38 years, until all the generation of fighting men belonging to the camp were dead, as the ever-living threatened them. For the hand of the ever-living was against them, to destroy them out of the camp until they perished. And when all the fighting men had died from among the people, then the ever-living spoke to me and said, Now cross over today the boundaries of Moab at Ar. But when you approach the sons of Ammon, neither distress nor hurt them, for I will not give the country of the sons of Ammon to you to possess, for I have given it to the sons of Lot as a possession. Rise, march, and cross the river Arnon. See, I have given you Sihon, king of Heshbon, the Amorite, and his country to break, assail, and defeat it in war. I have broken him this day, putting the dread and fear of you upon the face of the nations under every sky, who may hear the reports about you. They tremble and faint before you. Then I sent ambassadors from the desert of the east to Sihon king of Heshbon with proposals of peace, and said, I wish to pass across your country by the king's highway. I will not march many days, or deviate. You shall sell food for money, and I will eat it, and pay money for the water you give, and I drink it. I only wish to pass over on my feet. Do to me as the sons of Esau did who dwell in Seir, and the Moabites who inhabit Ar, until I have crossed the Jordan to the land which our ever-living God has given us. But Sihon king of Heshbon was not willing you should cross over him, for your ever-living God had stupefied his mind, and emboldened his heart, that by it he might give him into your hand, as he has now done. The ever-living God also said, See, I have begun to give up Sihon and his country before you. Seize it. Take his land for a possession. Then Sihon advanced to meet us, he and all his force to fight at Jahaz. But our ever-living God delivered him to us, and struck him and his son and all his forces. And at that time we captured all his towns, and devoted all his cities, nor allowed the men, women, or children to escape. Beside the cattle we seized for ourselves, and the plunder of the cities which we captured, from Aroer on the banks of the Arnon, and the towns in the valley, and as far as Gilad, there was not a city that was too strong for us. Our ever-living God delivered the whole to our approach. The whole extent of the country of the Ammonites, all along the vale of Jabbok, with the towns of the highlands, and all that our ever-living God commanded. Chapter 3. Then we turned and went up towards Bashan, and Og king of Bashan advanced to meet us with all his forces to fight at Adarai. Then the ever-living said to me, Fear him not, for I have given him into your power with all his forces and his country, and you shall do to him as you did to Sihon king of the Amorites, who lived in Heshbon. So our ever-living God also subjected to us Og king of Bashan and all his forces, until not a remnant remained to him. We also captured all his towns in the same campaign. There was not a city we did not take, from the 60 towns in the district of Argob to the capital of Og in Bashan, all which towns were fortified with high walls, gates, and bars, beside a great many towns of the Perizzites. We devoted them as we did to Sihon king of Heshbon. We devoted every city, men, women, and children, and all the cattle and plunder of those towns we seized for ourselves. We thus took, in the same campaign, their country from the possession of the 2 kings of the Amorites, which are this side of the Jordan, extending from the vale of Arnon to the hill of Hermon. All the towns of the uplands, and all Gilad, and all Bashan, to Salcah and Adarai, towns of the dominions of Og in Bashan. These countries you conquered in that campaign, extending from Aroer, which is on the river Arnon, and the half of Mount Gilad was given to the Reubenites and Gadites. But the remainder of Gilad and all Bashan, with the dominions of Og, I gave to the half-tribe of Manasseh, all the plain of Argob, and all Bashan, which is called the land of Rephaim. Yair the son of Manasseh took all the district of Argob as far as the borders of the Geshurites and the Maccathites, and he called them after his own name, Yair's towns, but I gave Gilad to Machir. To the Reubenites and Gadites I also gave a part of Gilad, to the middle of the vale of Arnon, the valley as a boundary as far as Jabbok, with its valley to the border of the Ammonites, and the plain of the Jordan as a boundary from Kinneroth as far as the sea of the plain, the Dead Sea, down to the hill foot of Pisgah from the east. But I commanded you at that time, saying, Your ever-living God has given you this country to possess, but you must march fully equipped in the front of your brothers, the children of Israel, with all your forces. However, the women and children and cattle, for I know you have many cattle, may remain in the cities which I have given you, until the ever-living has settled your brothers like yourselves, and they are also in possession of the country which their ever-living God will give to them beyond the Jordan. Then you may each return. I also commanded Joshua at that time, saying, Your eyes have seen all that your ever-living God has done to these 2 kings. The ever-living will do the same to all the kingdoms which are over there. Fear them not, for your ever-living God will fight for you. And at that time I implored the ever-living, saying, Almighty Lord, you have now begun to show to your servant your grandeur and your strong hand. What power in heaven or on earth can do as you have done with your might? Let me, I pray, go over and see this beautiful country that is beyond the Jordan, those beautiful hills and Lebanon. But the ever-living was angry with me because of you, and would not listen to me. And the ever-living said to me, Let this be enough for you. Continue not to speak to me again about this matter. Go up to the top of Pisgah, and carry your eyes westward and northward and southward and eastward, and see it with your eyes, for you shall not pass over this river Jordan. Therefore command Joshua and encourage and strengthen him, for he shall go over before the people, and he shall conquer for them the country that you will survey. We were then staying in the valley near Beth Peor. Chapter 4. Consequently now, Israel, listen to the constitutions and decrees which I will teach you to practice, that you may live, and go, and possess the country which the ever-living God of your fathers will give you. You shall not add to the matter that I command you, nor shall you detract from it, but keep the commands of your ever-living God, as I have commanded you. Your eyes saw what the ever-living did because of Baal Peor, how the ever-living destroyed every man who went after Baal Peor among you. But you who kept fast to your ever-living God are all of you alive today. Attend to me as I teach you the constitutions and decrees which the ever-living, my God, commands you to practice when you arrive in the country which you are going to possess, and guard them and practice them. For they will make you wise and intelligent in the eyes of the peoples who hear of all these constitutions, who will say, This is a wise and intelligent people, this great nation. For what nation is so great as to possess gods in its breast, as our ever-living God is to us in all we ask of him? And what nation is so great, possessing institutions and decrees like these laws that I put before you today? Only guard yourselves and guard your lives carefully, from forgetting the events that your eyes have seen, and from turning your heart away all the days of your life, and teach them to your children and to your children's children. Upon the day when you stood before your ever-living God at Horeb, when the ever-living commanded me, Collect the people to me, and I will let them hear what they must learn, so that they may fear me all the time they live on the earth, and teach their children. So you approached and stood below the hill, whilst the hill burned with fire up to the heart of the skies, with darkness, cloud, and gloom. There the ever-living spoke to you from the midst of the fire. You heard a voice speaking to you, but no image appearing. A voice alone, and it informed you of the covenant which he commanded you to practice, the 10 Commandments, and wrote them upon 2 tables of stone. But to me the ever-living ordered at that time to teach you the constitutions and decrees which you were to practice in the land into which you would pass to possess it. Therefore you must guard your minds very carefully, for you did not see any shape on the day the ever-living spoke with you in Horeb from the midst of the fire, from wickedly making for yourselves a carved shape, any image or model of man or woman, or form of any beast that is upon the earth, form of any bird which flies in the sky, form of any reptile on the ground, form of any fish that is in the waters lower than the earth. Or if you raise your eyes heavenward, and see the sun, or the moon, or the stars, all the host of the skies, and bow to and worship them, and serve those which your ever-living God has apportioned to all the nations under all the skies. For the ever-living selected you, and brought you from the iron works of the Mizraim to be a people for himself, as you are today. But the ever-living was angry with me over your affairs, and swore to prevent me crossing the Jordan, and to prevent me arriving at the beautiful country which your ever-living God has given to you to possess. For I must die in this country. I may not pass over the Jordan, but you will pass over and possess that beautiful land. Guard yourselves from forgetting the covenant of your ever-living God, which he contracted with you, for fear you should make for yourselves a carved image, contrary to the command of your ever-living God. For your ever-living God is a consuming fire. He is a jealous God. When you have begotten children and children's children, and are in the country, and have corrupted yourselves, and make carved images, and do evil in the eyes of your ever-living God, provoking him, I call to witness today the heavens and the earth to witness to you, that perishing you shall perish quickly from off the land which you pass over the Jordan to possess. Your time shall not be prolonged in it. But you shall certainly waste away, and the ever-living will scatter you among the nations, and your remnant shall die as a number among the nations where the ever-living has driven you. And you shall there serve gods made by human hands, of wood and stone, who cannot see, or hear, or eat, or breathe. But if you should from there entreat your ever-living God, and decide to seek him with all your heart and with all your soul, strengthen yourselves and encourage yourselves with all these events, after long periods, and return to your ever-living God and listen to his voice. For your ever-living God is a merciful God. He will not desert you, and will not turn from you, and will not forget the covenant with your fathers which he swore to them. Therefore search now the former times that were before you, from the time when God constructed man upon the earth, and from one extreme of the heavens to the other extreme of the heavens. Has there ever been such a great event as this, or has there been heard its like? A people who heard the voice of God speaking from amid the fire as you heard it, and lived? Or that God attempted to go and take for himself one nation from the breast of another nation, with trials, and miracles, and portents, and war, and with a strong hand and a directing arm, and great manifestations, such as all those your ever-living God has made in your sight upon the Mitzrayim for you? Then see and learn that the ever-living is God, and except him none. From the heavens you have heard his voice, when he taught you, and upon earth you have seen his great fire, and heard his commands from the midst of the fire, because he loved your fathers, and chose their race after them, and brought you by his great might to his presence from among the Mitzrayim, and will drive great and more powerful nations than you before your face, to bring you to give you their country as a possession, as at this day. Therefore learn today and fix it in your heart, that the ever-living, he is God in heaven and upon the earth, and except him there is no other. So keep his institutions and his commandments which I commanded you today, that you may prosper, and your children after you, and then your days will be long upon the land which your ever-living God will give to you for all time. Chapter 5. Moses again assembled all Israel, and said to them, Listen, Israel, to the constitutions and decrees which I proclaim in your hearing today, both to learn them and preserve them by practicing. Our ever-living God contracted a covenant with us in Horeb. Not with our fathers did the ever-living contract that covenant, but with us ourselves, those in this place, all of us alive today. The ever-living spoke face to face with you at the hill from the midst of the fire. I stood between the ever-living and you at that time to report to you the dictation of the ever-living, for you were afraid at the presence of the fire, and could not ascend to him. And he said, 1. I am your ever-living God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, from the house of bondage. You shall have no other gods in my place. 2. You shall not make for yourselves an image, any likeness of what is in the heavens above, or what is on the earth beneath, or what is in the waters lower than the land. You shall not bow down to them nor serve them, for I, your ever-living God, am a jealous God, punishing the sins of the parents upon their children to the 3rd and 4th generation of those who hate me. But I show mercy to thousands of generations of those who love me and keep my commandments. 3. You shall not take the name of your ever-living God in vain, for the ever-living will not hold him guiltless who takes his name in vain. 4. Regard the Sabbath day to keep it holy, as the ever-living God commanded you. You may labor 6 days and do all your business, but the 7th day is a rest to your ever-living God. You shall not do any business upon it. You, or your son, or your daughter, or your servant, or your handmaid, or your ox, or your ass, or any of your cattle, or your hired man who may be in your house, because your workmen and your maidservant shall rest like yourself. Remember also that you were slaves in the land of the Mitzrayim, but your ever-living God brought you out from there with a strong hand and a directing arm. Therefore your ever-living God commanded you to make the day of rest. 5. Honor your father and your mother as your ever-living God commanded you, so that your days may be lengthened and that you may prosper upon the land which your ever-living God gives to you. 6. You shall not murder. 7. You shall not fornicate. 8. You shall not steal. 9. You shall not bring up false evidence against your neighbor. 10. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife. You shall not long for your neighbor's farm, or his slave, or his handmaid, his ox, or his ass, or anything that is your neighbor's. The ever-living dictated these commands to the whole assembly of you from the midst of the fire, of the cloud, and of the gloom, a great voice, and did not desist there, but wrote them upon 2 tables of stone, and gave them to me. But when you heard the voice from the midst of the darkness, and the mountain burning with fire, then all the chiefs of your tribes and your nobles approached to me, and said, Now we have seen our ever-living God, his majesty and his greatness, and have heard his voice from the midst of the fire today. We have seen that God can speak with mankind and lives. Therefore now, why should we die? For this great fire will consume us. If we ourselves remain longer to hear the voice of our ever-living God, we shall die. For who is there of any race who has heard the voice of the living God speaking from the midst of the fire, like us, and has lived? Go yourself near and listen to all that our ever-living God says, and then report to us all that our ever-living God dictates to you, and we will listen to it and do it. And the ever-living heard the voice of your speeches when you spoke to me, and the ever-living said to me, I have heard the voice of this people speaking to you. All they have said is beautiful. What would I give if there were such a heart in them to attend to me, and to keep all my commands for all time? Then there would be prosperity to them and to all their children forever. Go, tell them to return to their tents. But you stay here, and I will dictate to you all my commands, and the constitutions and decrees which you must teach them to practice in the country which I will give them to possess. Therefore you must practice them as your ever-living God commanded you. You shall not turn away to the right or the left. You shall walk in every way as your ever-living God commanded you, so that you may live and prosper and lengthen your days in the country which you shall possess. The end of chapters 1 through 5 of the book of Deuteronomy. Recording by Mark Penfold.